Today?
I'm doing good, Thumper. I'm on the road again. Hello, Roger.
Morning, Brent. Morning, Thumper.
From one end of the New World to the other, from South America to the northern reaches of America itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Well, it's good to see Roger here this morning. Good morning, Roger. How you doing?
Morning, Thumper. I'm hanging in there, buddy. How about
Good.
yourself?
Well, I was wondering whether or not you were going to be here with us this morning. I guess you were busy last weekend, but I'm glad you're here.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. And Brent, so how's the weather in your where you're hanging out these days?
Neck of the woods, hot and humid, hotter than a pistol, 100% humidity and 90 degrees and pushing upward.
You must be way south of where I'm at.
Oh, yeah. Sweating like a stuck hog.
Oh boy!
Yeah,
that's why I love the Northwest. We don't typically.
That's right. You know, I used to. I was in the mining business out west, and I used to look forward to going out because I come back home and I get all sorts of, I don't know whether it's fungus or what, all over different kind of things. And I go out to Arizona, and it just mysteriously would disappear. Too dry.
Yeah.
So there's a good thing about dry weather. You have that up there consistently. That's good.
For the most part, yes. Occasionally we get a little humid, but nothing like DC or the. I was absolutely astounded when I went back to Wisconsin, and you're up in the Green Bay area, and it's damn humid up there. I mean, it's oppressive.
You've been there. Oh, you almost drowned every time you take a breath.
It's crazy. I never realized it was that humid up that far north.
Oh boy,
in the central U.S. area.
Yeah.
The bad thing about humidity is it makes it colder when it's cold. It makes it hotter when it's hot.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. In other words, there's no way to be comfortable in it.
No, there's not. You can't dress for it. You almost can't layer for it, in the cold stuff. But see, I lived those 9 years down there in Western Argentina in the high desert. That's the first time I'd ever been in dry climate. A lot of people compared that area to Tucson, which Brent was alluding to in Arizona. And boy, that dry climate is nice. I really enjoyed it. It could get to be over 100 degrees, and I never had an air conditioner. You could just stick a fan in front of you and it'd take care of you, with it dry. But with it's humid, you can't. See, that's the problem. In a humid climate, you get hot and you can go up under a shade tree and you're still hot. In a dry climate, you're hot and you go up under a shade tree and you're cool.
Yeah.
There's a big difference, really.
Yeah. You definitely feel the difference. But when it's humid, it just carries that warmth right to you.
Yes, sir.
And Wisconsin was a real surprise. But I wasn't too surprised with the swamp when I was back there, and then down in Florida. Well, obviously the Gulf Coast.
Oh yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I've never been colder than I was down in Pensacola.
Absolutely.
In January.
That's what I'm saying. It penetrates anything you put on with that cold, humid climate.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. And I was down there going through air crew school. So we were out running and exercising and doing all kinds of things, walking around on the base. And in that particular year, it was fairly chilly that winter. So, yeah. But that's why I love the Pacific Northwest. This is and the eastern Washington, North Idaho parts of it. I took a bike trip this past week, and I went up to Sandpoint and came back down through 95, and then in that way, and it was absolutely gorgeous day, and it was just very, very comfortable. It was between 59 and 65 degrees. Depending on where you were at. And it was absolutely beautiful.
Well, welcome back safe and sound. I'm sure that was a lovely ride.
It was a really good ride. And absolutely amazed at all the building that's going on in North Idaho. I know, Brett, you've been up to North Idaho a few times here recently. So have you noticed all the building that's going on there?
Oh, well, they say in Idaho that there's a cutoff point at a place called, I believe it's Riggins, cutting off that's northern Idaho from southern Idaho. Cultural difference. And southern Idaho is the fastest, Boise is the fastest growing metropolitan area in the country. And that's saying a lot. And the reason I say that's saying a lot because there are a lot of places in the country that are growing fast, but for metropolitan areas, Boise is big.
Yeah.
But in the northern part of the state, it's big too. Coeur d'Alene, which you're not far from, that place is bustling like nobody's business. I mean, the businesses there are making money. It's crowded. It's a small town, relatively, but it probably won't remain that way for long, is my guess. I don't know, Thumper. That's my take on it. But business is good up there. The economy is burgeoning.
Yeah. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I took a bike trip and I went south and then got on Highway 95, which comes up through, it basically runs north-south. It's the main, it's not a freeway, but it probably eventually will be. And I got on there at the Coeur d'Alene Casino and then rode north up into Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
Went through Coeur d'Alene on 95 and then up to where you turned off, when you remember when you came out to the house and we had dinner.
Yeah.
And that little interchange that you went through there,
Yes,
as far north as that.
Yeah.
And what I couldn't believe is the amount of building that was going on. I mean, it was strip malls, car lots, business, restaurants. And the last time I went through there, it was, it's been a while since I drove that section of the highway. And I was absolutely astounded. And then if you look at the area between 95 and the highway that I forget the name, the designation of it, but it's the one a little further west that you came over to and intersected with.
Yeah.
That section between 95 and that highway, the amount of construction in that area is absolutely astounding. And it's big, huge buildings. It's concrete, 250,000 square feet or something. Monstrous buildings that they're putting in out there. All industrial, for the most part. And then, interspersed in there is a lot of housing being put up, and it's just crazy amount.
Well, it boggles the mind to somebody like you who are from that neck of the woods. And actually, you grew up near the Canadian border in Washington, didn't you? Way up north there?
Well, yeah, we moved into Spokane in 1964. And that's one of my road trips, is to go all the way up to the border and turn around, come back. And go through that area, because I'd like to see if there's that amount of building that's going on up there.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been over in there, but I know that the people that do building, that do bulldozer work and heavy equipment work, if you need somebody to make you a driveway, for instance, they're backed up months.
Well, the number of trees, just the area, the ground that I saw, they just go in, they just bulldoze the trees over.
Yep.
And push them all into a big pile and sort them out later. Acres and acres of trees are being bulldozed over for housing areas or building construction or whatever. Totally, just like, wow. I couldn't believe it. And where's the money for that coming from in an age where, money is cheap, through the banks. Well, it was, but it's not going to get that way.
Not as much anymore.
Yeah, because they're starting to clamp down on that. Which, interestingly enough, Cliff High says, we're gonna see a lot of unfinished buildings once they take a couple more interest rate hikes. Because they're going to run out of these short-term loans that they use.
What, the mortgage rate's gone up from 2% to 5.5% in less than 6 months, I think.
Yeah, it's gonna get crazy. And so you see all this stuff and you go,
Now, what do you attribute all the building up there to? Is the evacuation of Oregon and California and other states and people going up there? Is that what's causing that, you think?
well, I think that a lot of businesses are relocating, and they're not doing it with big announcements either. A lot of times you see a big company leaving California or one of these other areas. There'll be some kind of a big announcement that such and such company is now is moving into either the Spokane area, not so much, but more over in the Idaho area because of the difference in taxes and leadership. I can't say that the governor of Idaho is that stellar of a leader, though. But
well, I mean, just look at the baby Cyrus situation over there that just happened in Boise. As Brent was talking about Boise being so burgeoning.
Yeah.
And that came out and they had a hearing on that. I don't know if you've heard this or not, Thumper. They had a hearing on the baby Cyrus situation, their administrative hearing, a CPS administrative hearing judge, I guess. And it came out in an open hearing that baby Cyrus is property of the state of Idaho.
Yeah, isn't that interesting, huh?
Okay. So, and what's come out of that? That's really, I think his name is Rodriguez. I don't remember his first name. The grandfather and the mother's father. Okay. I think her name was Melissa, it seems like. And, he has done a lot of really in-depth investigation. And he was saying that in the state of Idaho, CPS is kidnapping 4 kids a day in the state of Idaho only.
Interesting.
I mean, not that they're exclusively there. They're doing it in all the states.
Yeah.
But in that little state of what, 1.4 million?
Yeah.
4 per day. They're
and supposedly a state that everybody's moving to get away from the deep state tyranny.
Yeah.
And a little surprising that that would be happening in Idaho. That's for sure.
I bet they're sorry they picked on that one, I'm telling you, because they mobilized a bunch of people and really got a lot done and put a lot of pressure on the state and this whole apparatus. So it was good for Mr. Rodriguez.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I gonna have to scroll back on one of my guys here that sends me stuff. But Idaho, I suppose, supposedly made a commercial. I'm gonna have to roll back here a little ways to find this thing, but it is absolutely it's you're going like, whoa. Because it basically saying, if you're moving to Idaho from California or one of these other states, leave your bullshit there or don't come.
Yeah, right.
I thought that was just absolutely spot on. Where'd that go? I got to find it here. But it was.
I heard a very interesting story about your state on my show the other day from one of my listeners.
Oh, what's up?
I got a new gal named Debbie. She's a retired Delta stewardess. Actually helps a tax preparer on the side.
Okay.
It's kind of funny, right? And
okay.
She's very sharp. Okay. And she's got a friend. I think they must have been following Anna von Reitz. Okay. Mm-hmm. But she went to file her affidavit or citizenship papers with the Secretary of State of the state of Washington. Mm-hmm. And she kept calling them because she was sending it certified, and she thought if she sent it to a post office box that they wouldn't sign the return receipt requested. Mm-hmm. And so she called up the Secretary of State's office and tried to get a mailing address, and the girl wouldn't give it to her. And she kept saying, well, we only take special things. And so she said, what are you trying to send? Well, I've got something I want to send. We only take special things. So finally she flipped it and said, well, what are the things that you are afraid of getting or something? She said, you can't send us any citizenship affidavits.
Okay.
From the Secretary of State. Now, and of course, we advise you don't have to do the Secretary of State of your state. You do the Secretary of State of the U.S. But I thought that was just an interesting story,
That's interesting. Very interesting, because they, it's hard to say just exactly what's happening.
Well, I can tell you, I did an interview back on the 8th of April, and with Sarah Westall.
Mhm.
It took her a couple of weeks, and she chops things up. She doesn't like to do more than an hour segment at a time, so it was like 2.5 or something. And after the first one aired, I was having her listeners contact me, say, "Can you send me the other segments?" Which was kind of funny to me. And then she'd wait another day and put the next segment out. And then on Sunday, she put the third segment out where I had promoted that I'd send folks a package information,
Mm-hmm.
I'll bet you I've gotten over 350 emails off that. I've never, ever, in all the years I've been doing this, ever gotten the kind of response I got from that Sarah Westall. Now, I don't know why. I don't know if she just got that big of an audience. I don't know if she's just got that audience. Her audience is super attuned,
Mm-hmm.
or what, but it was incredible. I had emails from all over the world. I mean, a lot of Commonwealth, New Zealand's, several, Australia, several, Canada, numerous, England, even Brussels, throughout Europe. Can you help us? Can you help us? And so it was really very interesting. But what it did was, one of the people that crossed paths was a guy with a bunch of technical expertise. So I would like to announce to all your listeners that we have all that information up on a website now. Okay. Numerous interviews, sample affidavits, the how to escape the matrix documents, some exhibits of really important things like, I don't know, the Downs v. Bidwell site, and some other stuff that's just really insightful here. Mm-hmm. And so the address of the website is the Matrix Docs, DOCS, thematrixdocs.com. Mm-hmm. And if you can access that, if you want to spread the information to your friends or anything, you can just shoot them over there. And that takes a big load off me, because I was having to send that stuff out individually, and it just took copious amounts of time. But that's one of the good things that's come out of that, and on top of a lot of new listeners and new blood in the around. So that's good. But that's been a really important thing. Did you see the Cliff High announcement about a week ago on changing status?
Was it in his
I just got a web page on it, but he said change status immediately. Now, he's gotten a hold of some he's been exposed to Anna's stuff, it appears to me. But for him to come out and make that statement and be aware of this finally, I thought it was a real big deal,
Mm-hmm. Let's see, because he's putting a lot of stuff out. Let's see. I'm looking at his newsletter archives here. Let's see. I don't see anything in here.
I'll see if I can find this little while you're talking.
Unless it's maybe over at his Half Past Human deal. He's put out, he's still putting out his letters to the legislators and that. Still saying that, we are definitely on a path here for the next several weeks or next couple of months at least. More secrets being revealed and all of that. Let's see here.
Here, I found it. I'll shoot it to you in Skype here. You can put it up for the audience if you want.
Okay.
Let's see here.
And let's see here.
You are there. This is here. There, that is right there. Ought to be there right now.
Okay.
Did you get that?
Yeah. Okay. I've got it up on my screen here. Let me put it up for everybody here. He says, correct your status. We have all been infiltrated and captured. Cliff High, April 18th, 2022. Okay, so that's been around out there for a while. And he has an audio file here. Let's listen to it.
Correct your status. We have all been infiltrated and captured. April 18, 2022. The new Jew question. Are you? Likely not. By Cliff High. Mel K thinks she is a Jew. Brett Weinstein thinks he has Jewish heritage. Ditto for his brother Eric. There are 8 academics, scientists or teachers I follow as my trendline people, that I use to track the penetration of ideas or trends into their area of influence. I follow Brett Weinstein and Heather Haying, for academic professor trend markers. Brett's brother Eric is my science/finance trend marker. Both Brett and Eric are in my Jewish guys set as well. I follow 34 people as representative of the political construct that we call Jews. This lets me know when trends have reached into their realm of influence. There is reason to suspect that a real schism is going to erupt within the Jewish community at all levels, as well as within the individual people within the community. Mel K is a video personality who is now showing signs that she is running into the internal, personal schism forecast by the data some 16 years ago. Mel K is a knowledgeable, engaging personality, who is deeply concerned with current events, history, and our general social progress. She expresses a bent towards religion. Disclosure, I once contacted Mel K to advise her of connections between Charlie Ward and the KWR, Cult of the White Rabbit, which I thought to be polluting her video image, and which I assumed she was unaware. She was pissed that I had attempted to make contact, denied that Charlie was a KWR participant, and came unglued with Karen-like behavior directed my way. Mel K is hitting her personal encounter with the Jew question. This is a new thing. This Jew question is what those people who think, and have been told all their lives, that they are Jewish, will need to wrestle. The new Jew question that is facing Mel K, and all the other who think themselves Jews, at this moment arises from the common condition facing all humans in the Western republics, and to a lesser extent, the entirety of humanity. This common condition that gives rise to the new Jew question occurs because we have been lied to by a coordinated criminal organization, for several hundreds of years that has obscured so much that even our basic identities are unknown to us. Those people organizing all the lies are claiming to be Jews. Are they? Nope, not in my opinion. These are Khazarians who have no connection via DNA or inheritance or lineage with any people descended from Judah through Shem. So they are not racial Jews. They may practice a form of Judaism, but if we follow the history from the Khazarian Empire, we see that from the year 740, we get the Khazarian Mafia beginning the big lie that they are Jews, not merely Jewish or Judaism adherents. They start playing at the religion of Judaism, all the while working to bury their real religion deep into the obscuring words of the Talmud. At the time of the mass conversion of the Khazarian Empire, the true Jews from Judea became an instant minority in their own faith and race. The best thinking now is that racial Jew people, by the year 814, had been reduced to less than 30% of the total world Jew population by the birth rate of the Khazarian component. Today, the ratio appears to be less than 3% of the claimed Jews in humanity are actually carrying any Semitic DNA. Maybe. There are those geneticists who conclude that no Jewish DNA exists in humanity any longer. This is the core of the new Jew question that Mel K and others will be wrestling over these next few years as the horrific crimes of the Khazarians are revealed. Mel K and other Jews will have to face a harsh reality. That those also claiming to be Jews are behind the horrific state of humanity at this point. that those claiming to be Jews directing the evil that is besetting humanity now, are a continuation of the same process that has led to Jews being expelled from over 100 countries over these last few hundreds of years, all due to the same source of contention. Those people thinking they are Jews will have to contend with the issue of their personal identity, as a Judaism adherent, as a claimed Jew with probably no racial connection to any Semitic lineage, all the while living in a world where the secrets will be revealed in excruciating details of the crimes of the Khazarian mafia, their cousins, being laid at their feet as well. This is going to be a real bitch of a problem for most of humanity. True Jews have no need for name stealing. The Khazarian mafia has been name stealing from the very beginning. The Khazarian mafia practices name stealing as though it was a primary virtue of their real religion, which we can call Satanism without being too wrong about it. The name stealing of the Khazarian mafia goes so deep that they practice word deception in all the official documents you have ever signed in your entire life. Research it. Check your status. Legally you are owned by the United States of America Incorporated, a corporation, resident here on the American continent, but not U-Nation. Correct your status. We have all been infiltrated and captured. We are all wrestling with our identities now. The Khazarian mafia introduced the subject of identity into the body of the populace with their CRT and woke religion, so we are all here, now, questioning our identities as the Khazarians desired, but now there is a shift arising as many of us are pushing back by pushing the concept even deeper to ask real questions for real answers that lead to real changes. Correct your status. No one will be wrestling harder than people thinking that they are Jews originating from the Middle East. That will be a big shock, that they are not Jew by race. Perhaps worse will be reconciling their lives to the idea that they are Khazarian by descent, and cousins to the incredibly evil Khazarian mafia. Their cousins are child rapists, murderers, traffickers, produce adrenochrome, and drink human blood from freshly killed babies in rituals. Their cousins want to destroy 13 out of every 14 people alive today, which includes all the people who believe themselves to be Jews. These name stealers are incredibly evil. According to the Codex Era Linda, we have been fighting the Khazarians since before 300 AD. According to some scholars, the Khazarians were responsible for the collapse of the Bronze Age civilization in 1177 BC. So we have been fighting this fight for all of modern history. Personally, I stop dealing with people when I discover they are name stealers. They may be regular Jews who don't know any of their connections to the Khazarians who started all the name stealing, and they may think that it is a natural protective coloration that is worn by Jews to protect themselves from the hatred of the Gentiles, but they never examine why the name stealing is so abhorrent to the Gentile population. Name stealing is word deception. This is basically, other than violence and rage, the key weapon used by the Khazarian against you. The name stealing is being revealed along with the secrets of these past centuries. This will take us decades, if not centuries, to unravel all the lies and deceptions and to place proper names on things, people and events. To all those who think themselves to be Jews, note this: if you practice the Shel Nidre, you are affirming that you are actively a name stealer. You are on the wrong side of this unfolding history. Be advised. The Shel Nidre is the formalization of name stealing. All vows, all obligations, oaths, and anathemas, whether called konam, konas, or by any other name, which we may vow, or swear, or pledge, or whereby we may be bound, from this day of atonement until the next, whose happy coming we await, we do repent. May they be deemed absolved, forgiven, annulled, and void, and made of no effect. They shall not bind us nor have power over us. The vows shall not be reckoned vows, the obligations shall not be obligatory, nor the oaths be oaths. Melke thinks she is a Jew. She is just now grappling with the idea of the Satanism that has succeeded in taking over much of humanity, and that she is enveloped within the community that is creating this evil. She is near to the takedown part of the grapple. She is near to getting her first good grip on this. It is scary for her. This will likely be her most serious life crisis. Surviving such contention hardens the will and sharpens the mind as may not be achieved in any other manner. Such survivors are people that leave ripples in humanity long after their passage. There are a lot of people rowing the same boat as Mel K, who will be thrashing about over these next years trying to figure out, now that some of the secrets and history have been revealed, what does it mean to be a Jew now? And, am I a Jew? Being human is not for wimps.
Okay. Many of my listeners will remember that I read that at least twice here over the last month or so.
Really? That exact script?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This has been out there for a little while, and the interesting thing about it, if you go up here and you look in the, I don't remember these links being in here when I read it. But they've added in TSA AmericanNationals.org. Let's open that link up. And so we've got, the American Nationals. One-page declaration. Get started on your way to become an American state national or American state citizen. The 1779 Naturalization Act, they've got it here, long-awaited one-page declaration. And they tell you here on this, the attached one-page declaration is sufficient in and of itself to replace the 298 documents for purposes of participation in the state assemblies and conduct all business that the people may normally engage in. It reverses all presumptions held against them and blocks any further interference by government services corporations and their officers. The only inputs required are the name of the state where they were born, and the name of the country and state where they currently live, plus the day, month, year, and their hand-printed signature, plus the participation of the recording secretary of the state assembly, someone elected to fill that office as notarial witness. That is the man returning home, signs his name in printed upper and lower case, as taught in grade school, not in cursive. Okay, so they're just giving the stuff here. And this is again.
This is one of Anna's assembly deals here.
Yeah. And then that, I tell you what, that is still very, very, in my opinion, controversial. But now go ahead and explain what that one lady, okay, she's from Washington, I understand.
I heard that the one that called me lives out in Northern California. It's a friend of hers.
Okay.
But she didn't say where her friend lives, but since she was filing it there with the story the way it went, I'm sure she was in Washington State. She wanted to file. I'm sure she was an Anna person, because I would never tell you to file with the Secretary of State of the state. Mm-hmm. This new government structure has taken effect. After the Civil War, the states are political subdivisions. Mm-hmm. And the Secretary of State of the states now, best of my opinion or knowledge, is the one you go to if you want to incorporate. When you had your insurance company, you wanted to get incorporated, mm-hmm. you went to the Secretary of State to incorporate it. Okay. Correct. Yeah. And then you had to pay fees and stuff to him. So they're more of a business liaison and a business facilitator, I think. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so we learned this the hard way. Here a couple of years ago. Actually, I keep telling people our approach here is a process, because we keep learning and adjusting it, and this is a perfect example of that. I have a old time listener. Her and her husband started listening to me 11 years ago, and then they sabbaticaled for a while, and they came back because they had to go take care of grandchildren in the other coast and stuff. And so they're both avid listeners now, and they live in Connecticut. And so Kay, the wife, she's just a bulldog, and she was just hell bent to get this thing posted, like in the property records office, first of all. Okay. Which is what we used to do with John and Glenn, because we didn't know all this other stuff. So that was where we used the legal organ or public records, mm-hmm. And so that was right as COVID hit. So they weren't letting anybody into the records office. They had to do everything with email and phone. And she called up and tried to talk to the girl, and the girl wasn't going to registering for.
Mm-hmm.
And so then she came back to me, what do I do? I want to get this done. And I said, well, let's go to the Secretary of State. So we went to the Secretary of State of Connecticut, and he kept, we don't have an account for you. Do you have an account? Or you owe us fees and all this stuff? So we had to go back and reevaluate it. And that's when we switched over and said, well, this is a legal document. You're given legal notice. Who's the head legal guy in the state? Well, obviously, it's Attorney General.
Attorney General, yeah.
So we switched from the Secretary of State to the Attorney General. That's how I know this story wasn't one of my students.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because my student wouldn't have been going to the Secretary of State. We tell people not to do. That's a waste of time. But anyway, the information she got back, they would only give out a post office box.
Mm-hmm.
For the Secretary of State up there. And the girl kept badgering and said, well, what are you sending? What are you sending? Well, it's private. What is it that you don't allow? However the conversation went, and she said, well, it was citizenship affidavits. Was the one thing she specifically mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to see any more of them. And it only goes to...
Well, they've been delivered. I believe there was a whole bunch of people that not only delivered petitions, but they also delivered certificates or affidavits to them by the boxes, and physically took them up to their offices. And
right. Well, I think this is what Anna used to tell people, is to register your affidavit with the Secretary of State of your state.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not correct. That's one of the cross swords I have with her approach and the way she's teaching people what she's doing, because they're not centering in. It's no big slight on her. She just doesn't know, I think. And you got to go to the Secretary of State of the United States, because he's the one that's responsible for issuing passports. Therefore, he's got to know your legal personality to be able to accurately issue you a passport as to who you are, to represent you to foreign countries, which is one of his main jobs up there. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so that's why he's got that. And that's why when I first read 30 years ago, when I was doing all this reading, and one of the early books I read was Eustace Mullins' Secrets of the Federal Reserve. Mm-hmm. And in that book, he said, when they got the Federal Reserve Act passed, the first cabinet position they went after was the State Department. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, I was green as a twig, I'm going, well, that doesn't make much sense to me. All they do is deal with foreign countries. Wouldn't they go after the Treasury first? Well, now, see, you didn't understand all this. Now I understand why they went to the State Department, because they were going to set up this deal where you were in servitude, and he's the guy in the manor that was in charge of that, because he had the responsibility of issuing passports. Mm-hmm. And so that's the first cabinet position they went on after, because they knew it was the crucial linchpin to the financial system they were going to plan and the whole system they were going to institute.
Mm-hmm. So when you start adding it up and looking at how the infiltration began and what happened, it all starts. It's very difficult to argue that that's how they did it. It was extremely well planned.
Oh yes,
with the idea, we take this, and then we take this, and then we take this, and then we spread out into these. Right. And once we get to this certain level, then we can, we can place the, and they went for top level positions too.
Of course,
in a few key places, and then with those positions could appoint and promote and jiggle their pieces on the chessboard to be in the right place, and then you have the recruiting entities, which were the colleges, the secret, the Masonic clubs, all of these things where they would be, basically qualifying their next generation. As things move along, because they knew that this was going to be a multi-generational deal. That's the only way they could pull this off. And somebody I forget who was talking about it the other day on the channel. But this had to be multi-generational. The problem with things now for them is that Trump has pushed them, and Trump and the White Hats, but basically Trump was the catalyst that brought it all together, and forcing them to instead of seeping this in like the water leak in the basement, now it's become a gusher. And it's completely obvious because before they were able to, seep it in and slide it in, and if anything caused any kind of a kerfuffle, they could create a distraction with a, they poke Kim Jong-un to fire a couple missiles over Japan, or have a bombing, or any number of false flags in order to distract people from where they didn't want them to see, like a certain person being appointed into an office, or a change in a document, done by Congress, like this World Health thing now that's we need considered later this month.
Yeah, we need to talk about that. Mm-hmm. The way I've come to understand it has helped with one of my bright students, actually. Mm-hmm. But I realized a long time ago what you're saying there is, and put another way, is they don't work on a timeline; they work on an event line. Mm-hmm. Because they got to get certain things done before the next part of the plan can be executed or put into place.
Yeah.
And that's why they always set things up backwards. So that it's like a domino, one of those things where you have all those dominoes set up and you press the front one and it knocks down 10,000 of them, Well, they got it set up like that backwards so that they can just press the domino and everything executes frontwards. But what's happened is now you've got several generations. You know how the third generation of an immigrant family is usually screwed up, First generation comes on, works their butts off. The second generation follows. They got kids. They want their kids to get spoiled. And then they're the ones that turn out bad, right? Mm-hmm. So you got that kind of a scenario, I think, happening inside in their family structure. And they used to, when they were setting up the 13th and the 14th Amendment to start the Civil War to get it in the Constitution, they were looking 100 years ahead of time. Well, as that timeline shortened, then they start making mistakes. Mm-hmm. You got generations. You're not the same way the great-great-grandfather was that may have started this in whatever family, and now the kids are spoiled. They are full of themselves because that's just their nature in the first place. But what's really happened is the timeline and the event line have merged, mm-hmm. and they don't have the luxury of that time of just throwing a false flag on the side because something's coming in their way. They're having to make decisions on the spot, and that's when they make mistakes, and that's what they're doing now. Okay.
Yeah. A couple of things in this document that you just listened to that I found really, really interesting was and I had a lot of people that really, pinged on this one. And that was the idea that these people are taking an oath. When they take their oaths, it's an oath of atonement, meaning that,
you're talking about the Kol Nidre oath. He didn't say it very well. That was one of those digitalized voices, obviously. But what he was referring to is the Kol Nidre oath.
Yeah, the Kol Nidre oath. And whereas they just say, if I take any oaths or anything, I don't mean them. I'm not held by them. My first and only allegiance is to, whoever they're saying this oath to. Mm-hmm. We probably know who that is. It's not too hard to figure out. But it means that, they can do anything they want. They can take any oath they want. They can take any office that they want because, they are protected by their satanic leader.
They can lie, cheat, steal, and enslave with impunity for the next year. Okay. Yeah. Now, here's the critical thing about that. It didn't used to be that way. Mm-hmm. It used to be before Sabbatai Zevi. It was you were saying the Day of Atonement for forgiveness for all those things you'd done the previous year. Mm-hmm. He switched it to the upcoming year.
Yeah. Yeah. found that very, very interesting because, we how many times have we seen or heard where these people, they have oaths. This guy was a Marine, for crying out loud. He took an oath. Da 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 da. And supposedly we put a lot of stock in that. And Mueller was one. He was a Marine, right? And how could he be such a traitor to our country? This man was a Marine, for crying out loud. So we see that, and then the fact that what he's saying here about the actual Jew population has been the real Jew population has been reduced down to approximately about 3%.
It's about 3 or 4%. I can tell you that when I first got into this years ago, there was a Jew out in San Diego that had gotten a grant funding somewhere to do research. It was just as all this genetic stuff was coming up. Back in the 60s, late 60s, 70s. And he had gotten a grant to go out and study the Jewish population to find out what the differences were between Ashkenazi and Sephardic. And his findings were 96% are Ashkenazi. Okay. And then when they got it published, he got such bad backlash, he got defunded and the research went away. But it was a newspaper story in the San Diego newspaper about it that I saw.
Well, think of it. Okay. Who do we know, orchestrated World War II, orchestrated Hitler? Hitler, we know the Rothschilds are Jews. We know Soros is a Jew. We know that a lot of these people that are prominent now are all Jews, the bankers and everything else. All right. If you want to infiltrate and take over because they were given the choice, they could have chosen Christianity, Muslim, or Judaism. They chose Judaism, and then they corrupted it. And then what they've been doing is they've been infiltrating into it, using it as their shield. And anybody that has anything against them, they go, "Oh, you're anti-Semitic."
Correct.
And that's where the anti-Semitic attack against a rebuttal against anybody having questions about their motives, their actions, and what they do, and how they do it. So you're immediately claimed to be anti-Semitic. At the same time, what the other thing they did was they actually orchestrated the Jewish roundup and the attacks on Jews during World War II under the Nazis. Well, who was backing the Nazis? These bankers who are Ashkenazi Jews. All right. So they orchestrated that. And the other part of that operation was to force a lot of them in order to escape being sent to the death camps in Nazi Germany during World War II. They left and they went to Israel. And then all of a sudden we had who put up the money and helped form Israel? Rothschild. Okay.
Here's what you want to go look for. You want to go search out the transfer agreement. Are you familiar with that, Thumper?
I think I've heard of it. Explain it a little bit more in detail.
The transfer agreement was when they had all of the Orthodox Jews, and Hitler was trying to give them to countries and get rid of them. He didn't want to kill them, and so, but they wouldn't let them out. Okay, and so very small. These were the Orthodox. That was the Orthodox population. A very small group of these rabid Zionists, led by some doctor, and I forgot his name. They had a very small group, and he said, "No, just give us this small group over here and send those to the camp." Okay. So what they ended up doing was working out a deal with Israel before it was Israel, called the transfer agreement. There's a book written on it with all the documents in there. It's public knowledge. Okay. Just not very many people know about it.
Right.
And what they did was they said they'll let any of these Jews immigrate, and we will let them immigrate with their money. But they've got to use their money to buy German goods. And so they would help them take their money, but they would buy German goods with their money somehow in Israel. Okay, I might not have all the details straight here, but this is the parameters of it, basically. that's when Himmler and Eichmann went down. I think it was Eichmann went down to Israel to help facilitate with this transfer agreement and check things out down there. And I was looking at a video of this the other day, and they actually minted a coin. They had one of the coins there about the size of a silver dollar with a Star of David on one side and a swastika on the other.
No, for crying out loud.
Okay. And so that was, that's how they got a lot of the Jews out of Germany into Israel with at least the purchasing power of their money, but it had to buy German goods. It's called the transfer agreement. And this was, Eichmann was in Germany. They printed a medallion with a swastika and a Star David on it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all this accurate history. You just probably never been exposed to it before.
Yeah, and so they actually orchestrated, and took advantage of the sympathy that was raised over the Jews that were put to death in the death camps and everything. And anytime these people start, you have to ask, okay, we have a new phrase out there that's I've seen here over the last couple of years has been the Holocaust deniers. People out there that are saying the Holocaust didn't actually happen, or if it did happen. But when you start to look at it, the Holocaust was. Quite possibly another way for these Ashkenazi Jews to get rid of the real Jews and reducing the population down to enough that they could basically overrun and infiltrate the entire religion and that. And
now they're doing it with the vaccine in Israel. They're the most vaccinated country in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to send you something. I'm going to send you a little short video clip you may want to play for the audience. It's very interesting.
Well, I've got another document here, and you've now twice set me up for this other document. And I'm not going to let it pass because are you familiar with the disease known as Morgellons?
I've heard about it. I've got some friends that say they've had it for 20, 30 years or so.
Okay. Well, I ran across a document this morning, and I've done quite a bit of research on it. And I actually had a friend of mine that appears to have had it. Okay. And let me take down the share here. And what I found really incredibly interesting about this document is that they're saying now that the where'd it go? Okay, yeah, here it is. Okay, let me put it up here. I started seeing this out on the internet many years ago. This stuff about Morgellons, and I go, what the heck is this? I kept seeing it, and it kept showing up on a couple of websites I went to. I read a little bit, and I went, oh, that's weird. This is strange stuff. And then around about 2012, 2013. A friend of mine started having these lesions and, was experiencing chronic fatigue and these lesions and just all
fibers,
kinds of issues.
Fibers.
Well, we eventually did prove the fibers. I was able to. My ex works in a doctor's clinic. I think I've mentioned that more than a few times here, and they had a microscope there. And so we went on a weekend, and she opened up the office. We got out the microscope, and we did some skin scrapes and put them under the microscope, and we saw the fibers, the red, the black, blue fibrous things. He was wearing a fresh white T-shirt that day. It was a summer day. So there would be no reason for any black, red, blue fibers or anything. It was a white cotton T-shirt, and along with the other things. And so I started doing quite a bit of research on this thing, and the interesting thing was, the previous year there had been you've heard about these chemtrails where there was stuff hanging from the trees, gooey kind of stuff.
I've heard those things. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we'd had a lot of that the previous summer, and as a matter of fact, it almost killed the trees out on the front of my along the street here in front of my house. The leaves shriveled up, and I thought they were going to die. And they had this white gooey crap on them and stuff. The trees have survived, but it was after that we started noticing this issue. So anyway, we've got this. This came up. The National Institutes of Health of the United States lists Morgellons as a genetically caused disease, specifically due to chromosome 1 duplication / trisomy of Q4211, Q4212. Shown below is a hidden web page that was found while searching the phrase Morgellons with that, I believe that's the chromosome designation, the 1Q4211, Q4212. And on 7/19/2006, the page is reported by NIH as last modified. National Institute of Health of the United States lists Morgellons as a genetically caused disease, included as a phone number to report cases and get disease information, assumption that it was posted for the medical community. This page was not available to the general public. And then it goes on to say, patient was found by Morgellons victim and posted to the public on internet sites. Rapid deletion of all pages by the NIH/CDC. No traces of this page, including cached copies of this page, are available anywhere except here below. The NIH, National Institute of Health, claims that the web page below was a clerical error. Do you believe them? It was posted on the internet for over a year and became an error only when found and questioned by a Morgellons victim. According to the NIH website, found at aspensys.com, Morgellons is caused by either duplication or trisomy of the chromosome 1Q4211, Q4212. And here is a picture of the page. This came from the National Institute of Health. Please note, additional information on this disease may be available from they've cut it off here, but they have the complete page down below. And what they're saying here is, on this page, is that now my friend went to see doctors and things like that. And the one thing that I noticed was in the documents that I had been reading up to, being confronted by this disease, that people were getting absolutely no help from their doctors. They were being put off. Oh, you're just you're imagining this because they're describing symptoms like chronic fatigue, mind fog, and a feeling of bugs crawling all over your body and things popping out of your skin. All right. And so they started to just if the patient got too aggressive and that they would just mark the patient as being a victim of peritonitis. And then once you're diagnosed with as delusional peritonitis,
Crazy.
parasitosis. It's parasitosis. I keep delusional parasitosis. Okay. And it says in here, it was uncanny and as if on cue that physicians would generally diagnose Morgellons victims as having delusional parasitosis. I spoke at length to a doctor who told me that delusional parasitosis is such a rare condition that in a lifetime of practice, it was rare for a psychiatrist to ever see one patient with it. Suddenly, this rare and obscure condition being diagnosed by general practitioners, dermatologists, and even nurse practitioners. Once this diagnosis is in a person's medical record, it is all downhill from there. Doctors prescribed antipsychotic medications. Oh, yeah, that's what we need. That contained derivatives of piperazine or other medications that cause flaccid paralysis to nematodes and worms in mammals. This was always their first choice of treatment, and dangerous choice at that. For the medical information, see Living with a Nightmare. Piperazine is a commonly used component in swine dewormer. It would appear to me that this has long been knowledge about Morgellons by the hidden presence of a phone number available for physicians to advise them on how to deal with Morgellons sufferers and to report cases. I think they may have been waiting for us long before we ever approached them. The plan was undoubtedly to abate some of Morgellons sufferers' physical symptoms to antipsychotic drugs that also contained these dewormer components. And that way, people would actually come to believe that they were mentally unbalanced, since their medication would abate some of the physical symptoms of itching and the motile components of the fibers. It was insidious planning, if you ask me. Well, gee, are we surprised? The first discredit the Morgellons patient's mentality, so society will ignore the disease and then treat aspects of the Morgellons patient's physical symptoms without Morgellons patients even knowing it. FYI, a person is deemed delusional by a medical doctor. They lose the right to be a member of a jury. They can easily have their power of attorney and control over all their worldly goods given to others without their consent. They can be forced into a mental institution. Further, the right to custody of their own children can be revoked. These travesties have happened to people I personally know. And so what they're saying here if you want to just get down to the nitty gritty of the whole document here, is that what they were spraying and this stuff that they have been hitting us with through the aerosol spraying, chemtrailing, whatever you want to call it, created this. And whether it was aimed at a particular genome component, or if something they didn't count on was that what the aerial spraying was doing was setting us up for this transhumanistic move that they were going to make by having us breathe in and through our environment that was being polluted with all this stuff. It was a precursor to their whole transhumanism project that they were trying to implement. However, I'll give you a link to this page here, guys. However, this particular gene sequence appears to be sensitive to this, and so what they're saying is those people who are sensitive to this are the canaries in the coal mine, so to speak. They didn't count on this. This was this was an anomaly that they had not guessed on. So what they did was, when they first realized that this was happening, they put in their gatekeeper, which was the NIH, and then warning off all of the medical community. Don't give this. Do not admit to this. If somebody comes in and says, "I've got this thing we call in Morgellons, whatever," and then I told my friend, I says, "Look, be really, really, really careful about what you say to your doctors," because I was aware that these people were being diagnosed with this parasitosis. Delusional parasitosis, and if you want to keep your gun rights, if you want to, all of these things are on the line. If you start getting stuff put into your medical record of being delusional, and they put you on antipsychotic drugs and all that stuff, you will lose your right to own firearms. They'll rip that rat out of your hands.
If you still remain to be a citizen of the United States or a resident.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it still doesn't preclude the fact that these people have this condition. I saw what my friend went through, and it was horrific.
It only hits a certain physiology, evidently, because it doesn't hit wide swaths of people. It's just something in their physiology that leaves them evidently to be susceptible to this, whatever it is that they're spraying on them or however it's being transferred.
Well,
I don't know,
let's move that one step forward. What's the next phase of this operation? The jab.
COVID, sure.
All right. Yep. And so why did some people react to the jab much more severely than
physiology?
Others? Physiology. Okay. If these people had, these other, and it's not that they were aiming at these other traits, these genetic traits or anything. They might have been, but are these people are they the canaries in the coal mine? Unfortunately, not aware enough to know that if they go in and get the jab, they're going to
incredibly interesting about this document
drop over.
Is that
really isn't this jab just a giant IQ test?
Not aware. Unfortunately, I'm amazed at how many failed, or were coerced into it, and they made what they thought was the most intelligent decision.
I had an email from a new listener the other day. He's got a family, his wife, 3 kids. None of them are jabbed. The oldest son secretly sneaks out and gets vaccinated, gets the jab. I just, I wanted to cry reading it, really, because you can imagine the problems that's going to bring within the family. Now you can't turn your son out, oldest son. He's going to come home. Now he's going to shed on everybody that didn't go and get it. I mean, it's tragic.
Yeah. Here's what it says here. The NIH website clearly states to learn more or to report suspected cases, call the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, Morgellons information and voicemail line at 404-718-1199. And the page itself is reporting as having been last modified Wednesday, July 19th, 2006. We are awaiting a statement from the NIH, and we report on it as soon as we receive it.
We're probably still waiting on it, aren't we?
Yeah. A reply from the CDC never came.
Fauci didn't give us a report?
Yeah. Our Morgellons victims, the genetic canaries in the transhumanism coal mine. This webpage, it was not only openly available on the internet, nor was it ever intended to be for the general public to read. It was found by a Morgellons sufferer who had several family members with Morgellons disease who also had the 1q4211 genetic anomaly in their family genetics. Mm-hmm. As a curiosity, this person decided to search the term Morgellons coupled with 1q42. The search engine found this phrase, but there was not a mention of it when the link to the article was clicked. Other pages in this article were present, but there was no mention of Morgellons anywhere. Because of her acumen in computers, she was able to see a sequence in the page codes and found a page missing. She typed the missing code in her browser, and the page above is what appeared. This NIH page was removed from the internet so quickly that the only trace of it left was this partial photo snapshot that had been taken of it, shown above. This page was then posted to several Morgellons-related websites to inform the public. Upon discovering this page had been publicly posted, the CDC and or the NIH immediately removed all copies of this page. Cached the copies of the page also disappeared from all search engines within 3 days. To date, there has been no official denial of the information contained on the webpage. Due to the absence of an official press release, the public is left to ponder the meaning of the page. Keep in mind that at the time of publication, the CDC denied the existence of Morgellons disease. They never did officially acknowledge Morgellons. However, they had a page on their website which did, and gave